Pixar's Up is a delightful and heartfelt film about the power of love, determination, and dreams. While the movie definitely delivers a magical experience for people of all ages, there are some aspects of this animated masterwork that young viewers might not catch. The emotional montage towards the beginning of Up is likely to draw a mixture of smiles and tears from everyone watching the film, but younger viewers might not notice some of the subtle details that take place. It's a heartwarming moment when Ellie and Carl decide to have a baby and start decorating a nursery, but the joy quickly fades when we see them looking upset in the doctor's office. It's clear from this scene that Ellie suffered a miscarriage, and the fact that we never see the couple with kids after that point indicates that she isn't able to have a baby. Even though there's no audible dialogue, the montage packs a punch. It's also pretty notable for an animated film to tackle such mature subject matter. Even in the 21st century, miscarriage is a topic that's sometimes considered taboo to discuss. To see it addressed in a mainstream family movie is a powerful and groundbreaking moment that helps people open up about miscarriage and infertility. We're used to Pixar films being upbeat, but they usually weave in some serious and important concepts. In Up, we're given a glimpse into what it's like to be an older person in our society. Carl, who doesn't seem to have any living family members, or at least not any close ones, is considered an elder orphan. He's dismissed by some members of his community simply because of his age. We can see how patronizing people are towards him, and how the workers on the construction site near his home treat him as a grumpy but harmless old man. He's eventually declared a public menace by the court and ordered to a retirement home. He's clearly still capable of taking care of himself, but because of his age, he's treated differently, and, more often than not, with a complete lack of respect.
That's typical. He's probably going to the bathroom for the 80th time.
You'd think he'd take better care of his house.
But as fans of this film know, Carl has more energy, intelligence, and kindness in him than anyone gives him credit for. Plus, even after he fulfills his promise to Ellie, he still has plenty of adventurous spirit left in him. Like all Pixar films, Up requires us to suspend our disbelief. But as adult viewers, we can't help but let a little reality sneak into our thoughts. We can maybe wrap our minds around Carl over a long period of time tying enough helium balloons to his house that it floats away. But how does he manage to inflate them all overnight? When the movie was released in 2009, Wired crunched some numbers and revealed it would take more than 100,000 large balloons to lift Carl's house. Inflating all of those balloons, not to mention tying them to the house, definitely seems like way more than one man can accomplish in a single evening. There's also the logistics of it all. How exactly could Carl fit that many balloons in his tiny backyard? When the men arrive to bring him to the retirement home, the balloons aren't even visible from the front of the house, and it definitely doesn't seem like there was enough room for the multitudes needed to elevate Carl's house and start his adventure.
So long, boys! I'll send you a postcard from Paradise Falls.
Another notable aspect of Up is Russell. He's your typical all-American boy. He's a member of the Wilderness Explorers, which seems to be a fictionalized version of the Boy Scouts. He also happens to be Asian American. This might not seem like a very big deal at first glance, but Asian representation is notoriously lacking in Hollywood, so having an Asian main character in a Pixar film was an important step. Not just for the studio, but for animation as a whole. Russell was voiced by a Japanese-American actor, Jordan Nagai, and the film was praised for both its cultural and size diversity. Up also gave Russell the opportunity to show a range of skills and emotions, from bandaging an injured bird, to discussing his absent father, to rescuing his friends, to bravely attempting whatever this is. Another thing we've got to wonder about Up is how Carl and Russell are staying conscious at such extreme altitudes. They're obviously high enough that there are clouds below and around the house. This means that they're also high enough for the air to be growing pretty thin. Whether you're young and in excellent physical condition, or an older person who can't climb a flight of stairs, it's going to be much harder to breathe at high altitudes. That's why scaling peaks like Mount Everest can be lethal if you don't bring oxygen with you. The founder of the Institute for Altitude Medicine, Peter Hackett, told The Independent, "Even if you're on oxygen at extreme altitude, you can't get nearly enough oxygen to feel good or be completely safe. Without oxygen, your body is slowly dying." Fortunately, Carl and Russell never seem to suffer from oxygen deprivation. We're also glad that they never tried to inhale any helium from the balloons, or they might have ended up sounding like one of the movie's most dangerous dogs.
This is Alpha calling Doug. Come in, Doug.
Hi, Alpha. Hey, your voice sounds funny.
I know.
Carl's childhood hero, Charles Muntz, looks extremely good for his age. He's already an adult when the movie opens in the 1930s. And if Up takes place around the time it was released in 2009, then Charles has to be at least in his mid-90s. He's also a decade or more older than Carl. Yet, while Carl definitely looks like an old man, Charles seems to have stumbled upon some sort of anti-aging serum. Sure, he's got white hair and uses a cane, but he's still pretty limber for a man who has been around for almost a century. Unfortunately, beauty is only skin deep, and Charles turns out to be a psychopathic killer. He's just made up of good genes and a whole lot of evil intentions. Charles is definitely a character who deserves every nasty thing that comes his way.
Any last words, Fredrickson? Come on, spit it out!
Unless Charles' airship, the Spirit of Adventure, has the same mysterious anti-aging properties as its owner, we can't help but question how it's still airworthy. The airship has been around since the 1930s. Sure, Charles is an inventor who has no doubt been able to make repairs to the ship over the years, but it still seems incredible that it's flying after so many decades. It's reasonable to question just how safe it is to fly such an old aircraft. There's also the fact that Charles isn't just flying the Spirit of Adventure on special occasions, he's actually living on the ship full-time. According to Flexport, a typical plane is airworthy for around 30 years. Even if the Spirit of Adventure is a top-of-the-line airship that has been well-maintained, we can't imagine that it can remain safe for decades longer than modern airplanes. Russell is pretty proud of the fact that he's able to train his bird friend Kevin by giving her chocolate.
Chocolate?
Yeah, I gave her some of my chocolate. She goes gaga for it.
It turns out that this isn't actually a good thing. Birds aren't supposed to eat chocolate, and giving it to them can have some pretty nasty side effects. Birds are susceptible to chocolate poisoning, which affects their digestive system. Of course, Kevin is a particularly large bird, so it would probably take quite a bit of chocolate to hurt her. Had she been smaller, though, the chocolate Russell feeds her could lead to vomiting, diarrhea, seizures, and eventually death. Russell's a kind-hearted kid and clearly doesn't know better, so we can't blame him. But you'd think that Carl, an adult, would question whether or not giving a wild animal chocolate is the best idea. Thankfully, nothing bad happened to Kevin because of the chocolate. It just made her love Russell even more, which we can totally understand. Just when we thought we had wrapped our heads around Carl's floating house, we're introduced to a team of talking dogs. Well, they don't actually talk. They're wearing special collars that translate their thoughts into English and other languages. These extraordinary canines also know how to perform some pretty unnatural, not to mention impossible, feats, like flying warplanes into battle. Even in a world where technology exists that lets you have conversations with animals, we have to wonder exactly how Charles trained these dogs so well. Are they some sort of ultra-smart breed designed by the military? And why were they trained to fly airplanes with weapons? Does Charles have bigger plans for his animal army after capturing Kevin? While kids have an awesome time watching dogs serve dinner and talk to each other, some adults might speculate if Charles has lost all faith in mankind and only trusts the extreme loyalty and obedience of his canine companions, even if they are easily distracted.
My master made me this collar. He is a good and smart master, and he made me this collar so that I may talk. Squirrel!
Charles has clearly been warped by his desire to prove that he's not a fraud and that giant birds exist in Paradise Falls. He's so desperate to capture a living specimen that he has literally killed people to keep them from getting to one first. But wouldn't it have been easier to just capture some video footage of the elusive bird? This would show that there is, in fact, a rare large species of bird living in the wild. A video might also be enough to gain the interest of the scientific community, prove that Charles didn't fake finding a specimen in the 1930s, and prompt an actual expedition with a research team to help track down one of these colorful creatures. Plus, if Charles is able to create technology for futuristic dog collars with translators, tracking devices, and yes, video displays, then he can definitely record footage of anything that he chooses. However, there's probably just something incurably damaged about Charles that drives him to extremes. He needs to prove everybody wrong by returning to civilization with a live specimen from the wild, no matter how much damage he inflicts in the process. On the surface, Up is a whimsical animated adventure. It's bright and colorful and has a fabulous score, but there are so many deeper themes that, as an adult, it's kind of hard not to feel a little sad watching it. The first section of the film is already loaded with tragedy. Ellie and Carl lose their baby and it seems can't have any more kids. From there, Ellie dies. We find out that a businessman is trying to buy Carl's house so he can build on his property, and Carl is ordered to leave his beloved home and enter a retirement center. Things seem like they'll get better from there as Carl takes to the sky and heads to Paradise Falls. The house magically floats across the world and, by a stroke of seemingly good fortune, Carl runs into his childhood hero, only to find out that the man is actually a cold-hearted villain. He even attempts to take out Carl with a huge sword. However, their best fighting days might be behind them. At the end of the movie, Carl shows up to Russell's Wilderness Explorers ceremony to award him with his badge for helping the elderly. For some strange reason, no one seems bothered by the fact that Russell has been missing for at least several days and returns with an elderly stranger and a talking dog. Russell's mother, especially, looks way too relaxed about the whole situation. Some adult viewers might be wondering what happens after these final joyous scenes of the movie. Will Carl still be forced to enter the retirement home? Or will he live the rest of his life alone aboard Charles' airship? Basically, will this happy ending only be a temporary one for Carl? Luckily, if you stuck around for the movie's credits, you'll see that Carl's new life is only just beginning. He goes on to have many happy adventures with Russell and Doug. Near the start of the film, after Ellie passes away, it seems as if Carl was doomed to live his life as an elder orphan. But as the credits roll, we realize that he became an adopted grandfather and an extremely loved member of Russell's family. Some kids might not notice it, but that's probably the most uplifting part of the entire film. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more list videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.